with the attendant costs associated with it for those that are responsible for paying our property taxes. And so I think we learn every year that budgeting is not particularly easy. Decisions have to be made. Some of them people may not like. I can tell you that budgeting an education budget is not like budgeting a corporate budget. It's very different. We have a different constituency, and the impact of decisions have a direct effect on not only the quality of education, but people's taxes. So it's not an easy balance. But here we are on January 28th, and we're about to continue this conversation, and hopefully this evening we'll come to a determination as to what we think the right budget is for this upcoming fiscal year. And I'm sure my fellow members will have comments along the way. So thanks for letting me make mine, and I hope everyone on the board offers up their thoughts as well. So the next item on the agenda is public comment. And before we get to that, I think you'll find that the budget has changed a bit since our last meeting. We've added back, or Lisa and team have added back funding, recommended funding for the theater arts program and for the cheer program. So I know that is a concern of members of the community. So with that, we'll move on to public comment. We read a disclaimer at the beginning of this at every meeting, and the disclaimer says, the board welcomes the opportunity to hear from members of the public about matters concerning Weston Public Schools. Public comment is an important chance for the board to receive input and feedback from our school community. We listen attentively to all comments shared, and while we value and pay close attention to public comment, it is our practice not to respond substantively or sometimes at all during public comment, and there are several reasons for this. First, engaging in a discussion on non-agenda items could violate the board's obligation to comply with the Freedom of Information Act. Second, the board or the administration may not be prepared to discuss certain matters raised in the first instance by public comment. And third, the board develops its meeting agenda carefully to ensure that the board addresses matters that are pressing or relevant at the time of the meeting. We encourage members of the public with specific questions, concerns, or complaints about our schools to reach out directly to the superintendent. And you may also email the board at our email address, boardofelucation@westportps.org, and additional details on public comment at board meetings can be found on the Weston Board of Education website. And so with that, Jody, on to you. There we go.
Thank you. For any of the individuals who are in the attendee mode right now, if you would like to speak for public comment, I'm going to ask that you raise your hand. There's a little button down at the bottom of your screen that says raise hand. When you do that and I promote you to a panelist, something is going to come up on your screen telling you to accept the promotion to a panelist. Once you are a panelist and ready to speak, please please show your camera, state your name, and state your street address. And at that point, you will have 5 minutes to speak. Is there anybody that would like to speak for public comment at this time? Please raise your hand. Okay, Alex, I'm going to promote you to a panelist. Give me just one moment. Alex, you'll be joining now. Please turn on your camera, state your name, and state your street address, and you will have 5 minutes to speak, please.
I apologize. I'm in a car in a parking lot, so I'm just going to turn on my video.
Okay.
My name's Alex Haley, 42 Lords Highway. So I only glanced at it briefly on my way home, but the effort around some of the items in the budget reductions. And hopefully, and if anybody had not, please let me know so I can re-forward, but I sent an email with two different letters attached to them with more fleshed out thoughts around the budgeting process and specifically comments, questions on the 25-26 budget. Partly did that in writing, mostly because it's hard to get everything out in 5 minutes. So hopefully you guys received that. I was unable to watch the meeting yesterday. I don't know if any of them were addressed. Maybe somebody could comment on that when I'm done. But there are a few things that I would like to re-express from those letters as well as my last several comments. One is I continue to think, and I'm not exactly sure the timetable, but I don't know why this can't be done, but I continue to think that if we have clarity on health insurance benefit costs ahead of an ATBM, I don't know why we wouldn't caveat anything we send to the Board of Selectmen or the Board of Finance as subject to finalization of that. It just seems prudent to me as such a large item would be subject. We would send for approval and then have that subsequently be in flux. I think I said in my letter, one way is that if we think we're going to know, we should wait. If we don't think we're going to know, then I think that to the extent there is excess, I do believe that there should be some type of credit towards taxpayers for basically prepaying for that amount. So that's one comment. Second comment is I continue to believe that the approach on the capital budget seems to be a bit, at least from the information publicly online, a bit lackadaisical in what's in it, why it's in there, why it's needed, why now, why values changed, why it increased 200%. I continue to think that like that piece of it seems to be brushed over. You guys submitted a revised operating budget with changes, which is great because it's a very large amount, but you're also asking for $3.5 million in capital budget, which is twice as much as last year and makes the overall budget versus last year like almost 6% more, which would be in some ways unprecedented on the historical. So I expect that I will be in contact with others and other boards to really dive into some of this as the process continues, because I just don't think that brushing over that type of thing is prudent. And I do appreciate some of the reductions on the operating budget. And look, it seems like you guys are trying, so I do appreciate that. The other thing is there continues to be items in the operating budget that I just don't mathematically understand. I'm not going to sit here and purport to know everything about staffing levels, pupil to teacher ratios, et cetera. And it seems like overall the increase seems to be better on the operating budget side, but there continues to be two items around pension contributions and Social Security that are going up 10+% when salaries are flat, which just doesn't make sense to me when those contribution percentages should be relatively flat. So that doesn't make sense to me. And again, it's more, the arithmetic doesn't make sense. I appreciate some clarity there. And then on the capital budget, you guys obviously have heard me quite a bit there. That to me has just been my issue all along, is like that budget seems to be an afterthought, despite it contributing quite a bit to the overall amount. So again, I hope you guys got the letters. I still stand by all those comments, and hopefully those questions and comments on the actual budget get answered prior to any type of approval. I would not approve the budget today. That's my opinion. I still think that there's unsolved stuff even from the last meeting. I think one of the board members talked about getting detailed information around cost per student and other data, and I'm not sure that was posted to the public file. So it seems to be open items that still aren't resolved. And so I don't know what the rush is to approve right now versus submitting and having open items that continue to be refined. And maybe that's the answer, which would be fine. And then we can continue working through it. But
That's your 5
I don't
minutes.
think it's appropriate to approve tonight. Thank you so much.
We generally don't make comments, but Alex, first of all, I'd like to thank you for your letters. They're very thoughtful. You know, you've took a lot of time to put those together. I don't happen to agree with everything you say, but I did agree with much of it. I would encourage, you know, I came to the Board of Education from the Board of Finance. I'd love to take some time and sit down with you. You know, whenever you're free, we can go through the process, because it's not as defined as it's very defined, actually. It's not as fluid as, you know, one would like it to be. But I would like to thank you in particular, for taking the time for putting together those very thoughtful 2 letters that you sent to us. And you know, my phone number is on my email address, and I'd love to get together with you when you ever get a chance.
Great. And look, I appreciate you guys putting up with me. I know I can be a little bit of a pain in the neck. So
Well, just pay attention to the road, please.
I'm on the parking lot. I'm not driving, so everybody
Okay.
can rest assured. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Alex. I'm going to move you back to an attendee now. If there's anybody else that would like to speak during public comment, please use the icon at the bottom of your screen and raise your hand. Anybody else? Okay, I think that's it. We have people just viewing at this point. Nobody's raising their hands.
Okie doke. So let's move on to the next item number 4. The first is the proposed adjustments. Lisa, do you want to take that?
Thank you, Steve. The proposed adjustments, as you said at the beginning of the meeting, the administrative team met immediately that afternoon when we had our last meeting to go over different things. And look, we don't want to put things, and I shared this in emails that I sent out, that divide groups. You know, we need to come together as a community and look at this budget as a community. And we felt strongly that you know, the amounts that were involved in components of both the athletic and the district theater program, it's not worth the angst and the heartache, quite frankly, at a nominal amount. We don't, as you said, enter into these decisions lightly. It's really hard because each reduction means something. However, we are comfortable right now with the list of reductions that we have. And I thank Mr. Cross for putting together another spreadsheet. I would say that every one of these budget adjustments, you know, when you see things like that, there is a restructuring of Project Challenge, that does not mean the program is going away. It means it's a restructuring like we did at the middle school. When you see something about, you know, some world language reductions, we feel that that they can be absorbed in Spanish in particular in a way that is not going to hurt the offerings. And to be frank, it's been said early on in the process that the Chinese numbers have not warranted being able to continue the program. You know, this often happens. It happened to the German language program in Weston, and it's happening with this. And as it's a tough decision to put on, we needed to put it on. I think that we're in good shape with this budget right now. I'm really proud of the work that we did. I still remember when we were at that subcommittee that for the Board of Finance a couple of weeks ago, and they were talking about projections, and they said, you know, we put a placeholder in at 3%. And I am really proud of the fact that we got to 3.05% with this budget. You know, it's clearly not easy, but this is what we need budget. I know there is also a concern about how do we sustain this kind of budget, and how do we sustain these levels of staffing? And I would say to you that this budget has reduced the equivalent of 7 FTE or full-time equivalencies, and that moving forward, it will be the responsibility next year of the new superintendent and the administrative team and the board to continue to look at ways to balance enrollment projections, section projections, programming, improvement. When you look at staffing for example, intervention and special programs, all of that, every budget has its own theme and its own context at that particular time. So I think I'm going to stop talking right now. But yes, we would ask you that you would approve this budget. Again, remember, this is a preliminary budget estimate. And those words are important because it does go to the selectmen. It does go to the Board of Finance. It ultimately goes, as Mr. Ezzy said, to the town, to the community at the ATBM and that. Those are all important parts of the process, and we will continue to collaborate with the upcoming meetings of the two different boards on that process. But I do encourage you to support tonight's number. Thank you. And we're here again to clarify anything, or I know that sometimes people ask you questions in the community, and please feel free to ask or give any feedback, and we're happy, our team is happy to respond.
Thanks, Lisa. Do members of the board want to comment or ask additional questions before we move on to a vote?
It would be helpful, I think, if Lisa, to Alex's question, because it is an important one, to explain, or maybe Phil, the increase in the pension and the Social Security.
Mr. Cross, please.
The increase in pension is primarily attributed to non-certified staff. I did send an email over to Alex explaining the difference, that while we may have a difference, a negative or a small reduction in overall salaries, those salaries that are attributed to seniors had increases. So it's really the drivers of that. What's also missing from, or what Alex is not seeing, are those salaries that's also included in the grants. And the grant salaries are also subject to both CMERS and also to Social Security and Medicare.
Does everyone understand CMERS for the listening public?
Why don't you go explain that? Phil?
Sure. CMER is a pension plan for our non-certified groups, so pretty much for all groups that are outside, that's not teachers, or within the not teachers union, outside of the teachers union, on part of WTA.
Is that like Connecticut Municipal Employees? That's what it stands for, right?
Connecticut Municipal Employees Retirement System.
Thank you.
And yes, it looks like Phil is having some connectivity issues. So our non-certified staff belong to that group. And I think it's worth noting that we do not contribute as a district to our teachers' retirement system. And our certified administrators are also part of that group.
And that's managed by the state.
Correct.
David, any additional questions? Why don't we just go around and see what everyone thinks? David, is there additional questions you would like to ask, or any comments you'd like to make?
No.
Okay. Michael?
I have a question just on the capital budget, I think. And I don't think Mike is Mike Delmaster here? Maybe not. So it may not be appropriate. I guess
No, he's not, but we've been in a lot of meetings. I think go ahead and ask it.
Yeah. I mean, the one thing I just wanted to bring up on this is with respect to the HVAC system in North House. So we all know this is needed, right? I mean, I have a daughter actually that's in second grade this year. So no one knows that more than me at this point. I guess my only question is the planning for this. We all have known that this has been needed for quite some time. And so I guess I'm just I need clarity as to why, if you think about the design phase, the ordering of the materials phase, the, you know, the installation phase of that, let's say, project. I guess my question is, why have we waited or delayed the design? Because I think we don't quite know from the last discussion yesterday, at least what I can make of it. We don't quite know what system we can put in, which of course calls into question the number. So I guess, was there a reason, and again, I don't know this, was there a reason why we hadn't moved forward with the design and gotten better clarity on what actually was possible there, so that we could have a more firm number in terms of what that potential cost would be? And then I guess the corollary to that is, does that all have to be approved this year, or can that cost be spread out? Let's say, assuming it's 50-50 materials / design and then labor. Can that be spread out so that it's, we're approving, let's say, design / materials this year, so we don't hold up the process, and then next year we have the labor part, the other 50% kick in when it's going to be installed? I guess those are my two questions around that one line item in the capital budget. I don't know who can answer that, and maybe.
No, that's fine. I'll take a stab at it. So over the past several years, right, we've been having these kind of conversations, both for Hurlbut and also for the middle school, where we've put items on our capital budget, and at some point, because of affordability or whatever it is, or similar conversations as what we have now, they pretty much came off the capital budget. So to be honest with you, the reason why that study was not being done was because we weren't certain what direction the town was heading, and also whether or not the town could afford whatever renovation that we needed to do. So we held back because we didn't want to spend money on projects and something that could not be funded, because we pretty much thought it was a waste of funds. So we pretty much held back. To be honest with you, those funds were approved maybe a budget cycle or two ago, and we held off. It's no different from the high school, where we have two wings. I keep getting them mixed up. Two wings of the high school that needs renovation, and we do have money within a capital budget to hire a consultant to do that. But the question always remains: what is their affordability? What can we do? When can we do it? And and things like that. So this year, similar to what we have done in the past, the administration, we've said, we need these things to be done, right? We know that the question may come up as to whether or not the town can afford it, but we know that these projects need to be addressed at some point, and we need to have them on our capital budget. So even if they're not approved, well, we can have discussions just like what we're doing right now. So if it is determined that the town can afford, and the Board of Education would like to approve adding the HVAC at Hurlbut, yes, we could split the cost over 2 years, because as Mike mentioned, the first phase, right? So we're getting the funding right now so that the money is in place in the summer of 26, so we can start the projects. So over 2 years, we can fund one phase now, the initial design, not the design, but we can do a quarter, let's say up to 50% in year one, and then the second 50%, the second half, in year two.
Okay, so it was a little bit of a chicken the egg scenario with actually funding it, but funding actually the study to at least understand what was possible to install. But of course, we needed to confirm that we would move forward with it, or that it would be affordable for us to go ahead and to do so. Does that sound right?
Yes.
So
if you were, sorry, go ahead, Steve. Go ahead. Yeah.
So just on that point, so if we were to fund the study, I don't know what that cost.
I was going to ask this next. Go ahead. Yeah.
So there is money already approved in the budget. We do have money earmarked in our capital budget for the study. We will be issuing an RFP within the next 2 weeks. Our goal is to issue an RFP and to hopefully have a firm number or something to start a conversation before the Board of Finance votes in March.
Was this approved? Sorry, was there money approved? Just to be clear for Phil, was
Yes.
there money previously approved for the study, or is it?
It was. Money's
It was.
correct. We did not do anything because here's why. We started a conversation primarily.
I don't want to give you a hard time. I'm just trying to understand.
No. It's okay. I'm just trying to for you to kind of paint the picture. We were hyper focused on the middle school. We were moving along with the middle school, and then right as we thought we were at the end and ready to make decisions, the brakes were applied on the middle school project. Once the brakes was applied on the middle school project, we paused on doing anything else because, again, in our minds, we did not know what the town could afford and whether or not it would be a waste of funds to even start doing the consulting work or engineering work for any kind of project, both at Hurlbut and also, again, at the high school.
Do you recall? So to Steve's question, I was going to ask this anyway. If you separate out the design phase here, do you have an idea as to what that would cost if we split this up in 2 years? Do you have an idea? First of all, I guess if it was previously approved, was that then part of the surplus that then went back to the town? Okay, you're saying no. Okay.
I'm saying no, because that was capital funded.
Okay. It was capital funded. Okay, got it. And then I guess if we go forward now, do we have an idea, since we don't know what system, let's say, gets put in place there, and hopefully we can upgrade it and it's more of a central, air, etc. System. But since we don't know exactly the system that's going to be put in place, do we at least know what the potential cost of the design phase, again, getting back to what Steve was getting at too, do we have an estimate for that, Phil? Or we don't have an estimate for that?
We don't have a firm number on that. So we do have, I think, if I'm not mistaken, I don't have the exact number. It's somewhere between 35 and 50,000 that we have for consulting fees. Even when you look on the updated schedule that was presented by Colliers, for all the projects that we have, you'll notice that all the projects are funded over 2 years. In year one, that's the cost for the engineering, the consultant, and everything else. And once that cost has been established in year two is when the funding is pretty much done. Listen, Hurlbut has been the way it has been now for several years, right? This is not something that is new to anyone on this board or to anyone in the community. And we've always deferred the projects. All projects, right? And I'm just talking open right now. All projects for both the middle school and for Hurlbut have been deferred for over 10 years. Prior to my start, I have been told that the Board of Education or facilities were told, let's hold off and doing any major renovation at either end. For the past several years, 2 years ago, we had nothing on for the middle school, right? And we were at a point where we needed to do something for the middle school, and we added projects. The last project that we added for the middle school was the locker improvements, right? And as I know, I think that's been great for the students. So we've been trying to chip away at stuff, guys. A lot of times items are on our capital list, right? Because we need to have these conversations, whether it's approved or not. But what we need as a board, we need to have these kind of conversation. And yes, we have put items on our capital list, and those items have been deferred. And if we were to defer this, we'll defer it, and then we can always come back again at some point. The town Board of Finance, 1 second, Steve. The Board of Finance is in the process of formulating the debt capacity for the town. So we'll have a better sense in a few weeks or in a month or so as to ultimately what the town can afford.
But just getting back to the HVAC project, can it be phased in over a couple of years? Or once you start it, you have to finish it?
Now, once we start, we can do the consulting portion, the engineering portion of it, and make a decision not to do anything.
Okay, but once you make the decision,
Then we have to go ahead.
then you have to go ahead, and that's $1.7 million. What
Our estimate right now is $1.3 million.
is $1.3 million?
Correct.
And that would be in, we would either include it in this budget we're talking about now, or possibly postponing it to fiscal year 27?
If a decision is made to defer to anything, I would recommend that we partially fund it, so that at the onset we will have funds in place to order the equipment, and then as a project proceeds, then we can have funding to pay on the labor side. So the funding could be done over 2 years.
Not to use the negative words of non-lapsing account, but that's what we're basically potentially suggesting if we fund it over more than 1 year.
I think another way to look at it, Steve, it would be similar to what we have done with the high school track, where Parks and Recs has pretty much had a sinking fund where funds set aside, and that was done over 5 years or so. And then last year, maybe the year before, the Board of Education got their approval for their portion of the project, and the project was completed.
And Phil, I'm not suggesting that we delay that. Look, they need something done at Hurlbut for this. I think it's been delayed long enough. I think I think we tend to kick decisions. We kick the can once in a while in terms of some of these tougher items, and they're hard. But I think this needs to get done at Hurlbut. The question is just, I guess at this point there was a little bit more clarity in terms of what the plan was. That was my comment. Then my question was, can we still move forward with it without delaying the project at all, if we just fund it over the 2 years and not just all in the first year? Again, the first year, I'm thinking about this simplistically. The first year funding would be design and enough money to set aside to order the parts, because those will take months and months and quarters potentially. And then when they're in and we're ready to install, then we have the second sort of tranche of money then ready for labor for them to go ahead and install it. So instead of all just one chunk here, it's not that we're delaying it. It's just that we're spreading out the cost of it over 2 years. Okay.
Absolutely. And our goal is to have information that can be presented to the Board of Education subcommittee sometime in March, even if it means that we have to call a special meeting just to discuss this one item. That is our goal. But absolutely, if we are agreeing, or if the board is agreeing to fund this project, it could be funded or proposed to spread the cost over 2 years.
So procedurally, if that's the decision, then my guess is, not to speak for everyone else, that seems to be the right thing to do. How do we do that tonight?
The way to do that tonight would be to reduce the capital budget request.
Okay.
Well, can I just ask a quick question related to that? If we don't, this is something that needs to be done. I think we are all in agreement it needs to be done. The question is, when does it actually get done? And it's not, at this point, I think, a delay on the part of the Board of Ed or the administration. It's a process. It's getting the parts, it's getting the design. So if we approve the full amount tonight, the likelihood of us spending that in the upcoming fiscal year is unlikely, or maybe not likely to spend more than 50% just due to timing. So what happens to that money at the end of the coming fiscal year?
Sure. Just as a reminder, all funds within the capital budget do not expire.
Right.
Okay. So if we were to delay or change the funding, my concern would be we are now starting at an elevated increase or ask next year. Because we're just shifting that money we know we need to spend into next year's budget. So we're kind of, I think, putting ourselves at a disadvantage in January of 25 for our January of 26 conversation.
Yes and no. Yes, to the part that we're starting the year with an increase, but what this does, or what we have always tried to do, is try to not have whipsaws, where one year we'll have a spike and then for it to come down. So what this will do is that it will level out the funding request over several years. Historically, that's what we have done. Again, this year we only have this one item that's really spiking the budget. But if you strip that out, you'll realize that our budget tends to be in the million or so range for capital budgets.
Okay, and so then why wouldn't we just do that if you look at where the likelihood of the money needing to be spent or encumbered? It sounds like 50% of the 1.7 million is not likely, at least 50%, not likely to be needed until fiscal year 27.
Correct.
But if we spend half of it to buy equipment, we're going to spend all of it the next, in the following fiscal year, because, you're committed at that point.
Right. And I think that I think we should be committed to the project. I don't think there's any question about that. I think we are as a group. I think maybe where I was originally heading was just take the money should be in the budget now. And because it's a non-lapsing account, but then Phil, you kind of brought up the point, which makes sense to me as well. It levels spending out on the capital side if we kind of split it into 2 years of budgets. This year, what we likely will be doing, and we know we're starting out next year's capital budget. We just take that number of 1.7 million, right? And you can chop it in half, move half of it over to the projected or next year. So for my purposes, I think we're committed. I think it maybe from a leveling perspective, it does make a little bit more sense. So we don't have this big spike, as Phil kind of said, and then a drop.
So, just recognize from a budgeting point of view, knock on wood, we haven't determined what the operating budget is, but let's assume we go forward with what's being proposed. The big contentious budget between the town and the Board of Education will not be their respective operating budgets. It'll be capital, right? So that's going to, when we get before the Board of Selectmen and the Board of Finance, the big conversation is going to be capital. And so we're going to be competing with whatever the town believes, they need. That's as much a necessity as robot. So.
But if that's the case, then I think it would make more sense than to spread it out over this year and next year. So that
yeah, that's essentially what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So then would you like us to consider reducing our request by $875,000, which would then bring it to $2,461,000 if we split it in half?
Would that be sufficient, Phil? Would we be safe if we were to split it in half?
I believe so, yes.
Then that makes sense to me.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay, we're jumping a bit ahead, but
Okay. Well, I just made a note. We can come back.
okay, we'll go back to that.
Okay.
And just if I may, just to in fiscal year 22-23, the Board of Education and the Board of Finance did approve $50,000 for consulting work related to the North House.
Okay. Michael, any questions on the operating budget?
No, I'm good. Thanks, Steve.
Sharon? Peter?
I have no questions on the operating budget. I may have a comment, but questions.
Chad is not on the call. He's, I think, now flying from Las Vegas to San Francisco. His text to me said, please ask at some point if Project Challenge should be added back at its previous level. Besides that, no questions.
Yes, I can just add that I wrote a response to Chad and said that it was not taking it away, but it was restructuring it, and the program will continue. So the administrative team did the exact same thing at the middle school, and quite frankly, nothing was raised, and there hasn't been anything raised since that approach. Correct, Mr. Doak? There's been no concern, so I see no reason to add it back in when we know that it has been done successfully.
Okay, well, we can report that back to Chad. I mean, I don't have any questions. You know, I think collectively as a group have asked Lisa and team a lot of questions. You've been incredibly responsive, Lisa, as you've proven yourself to be in previous years. And I guess without any additional, oh, Lisa left. I'm sorry. I should have asked you. You're good? Okay. So do we want to have a vote on the fiscal 26 operating budget? Phil, do you want to just repeat it? So
give me one second.
Okay.
That amount is $61,151,439.
And that's a 3.05 increase?
That is correct.
Right. So can I have a motion to approve the proposed fiscal 26 operating budget?
I have the language. You want me to read the language?
Yes, please.
Okay. Move that the Weston Board of Education approve the fiscal year 26 operating budget in the amount of $61,151,439, which represents a 3.05% increase.
Thanks, David. Is there a second? Okay. All those in favor, let's do a roll call. Lisa left.
I approve.
Peter Gordon.
I approve.
Michael Guido.
Sorry, I approve. Can I make a comment about it, Steve, really quickly?
Of course.
I look, I just wanted to thank everyone for the process. The administration has worked really hard for this. They've answered a ton of questions, given us a bunch of detail. Look, I do think everyone that the process can be better from a timing perspective, right? I think I've personally struggled a little bit with this, in that we're being asked, I know it's been brought up before, we're being asked to approve a budget with question marks around potentially big ticket items that are not firm or yet confirmed. And so I don't know, again, this is probably, and I'm sure there'll be some eye rolling, but I don't know what to do about that. Again, is it a change to the charter in terms of when we deliver the budget? Is it a change to our process in some way? I know it's very difficult, and we're always sort of coming up against, against the timing constraint here. I also think, just last comment here, then we'll move on. I also think I just still struggle with the sustainability of the budget. And again, some of these metrics are arbitrary by some, looking at like cost per pupil or cost per staff or whatever. And unfortunately, it gets back to head count. I do want to be clear that I think, look, I don't want to be here, frankly, right? I don't want to have to make those decisions, but I also know that going forward, I would rather make smaller decisions today to make the budget more sustainable than having to make bigger, more impactful decisions later down the road that really just impact the students or the quality of education or the experience that the students have. Again, my kids go here. I'm very supportive of this. I'm very supportive of the administration and all that they're doing. I just wish that, again, we can get to something that's probably a little bit more sustainable. Again, maybe it's a headcount situation. I do feel like we need to delve into that a little bit more. Maybe it's the non-student facing headcount. I don't know. I'd love to see I'd love to delve into that more. I guess we're going to have to do that in the future. I don't think it's going to get easier. But with all that being said, given where we are, it's 3%. It's not necessarily, like I said, the number. It's just the sustainability sort of below the surface here, especially knowing that there could be insurance costs here that continue to crowd out, let's say, investment going forward. So I'm very uneasy about the trajectory, although I'm supportive of the administration and I approve the budget.
Thanks, Michael. David?
I approve, and I would just like to add something much more brief than Michael. I agree with most of what Michael said. This being, I have to look over my shoulder, I think my 4th or 5th budget cycle. I have learned so much about the way the public schools operate that is different than the private sector. And you just simply, like someone like Alex, who clearly has a wealth of knowledge and wants nothing for the district but the best for everybody. We just operate so differently. And I cannot say enough good things about the conversations I've had with Lisa, Phil, Julie, everybody to educate me. I mean, Lisa and I spoke a number of times just today, just to kind of get my head around a level of comfort. So it is, I've learned it's exceptionally complex to understand how our budget works. You can't just go and say, this position should be eliminated. That person is making X, their benefits are Y, therefore we can save Z. It just doesn't work that way in the public school system. It's incredibly complex, and I'm just very grateful for the administration's commitment to our students and just their ongoing willingness to continue to educate me so that when I vote yes, it's from a very educated perspective. And there is more work to be done, but I'm very comfortable with this year's budget.
I've seen the report card they have on you, David. You have a little bit of work to do.
I'm working on it.
All right. Sharon?
You're not that brief, David. You're not that brief.
You're on mute, Sharon.
That's funny. All right, David, unlike you, I will be brief. We are on the precipice of some big changes that are going to be taking place in our district. But having said that, I think that the administration has worked really hard. I appreciate all the work that you've done in answering all of our questions about getting this budget to a place that's palatable for the community, especially having been given some curveballs that we were not anticipating. But I also happen to agree with both Michael and David in as far as sustainability, and that's kind of what I'm referring to when I talk about the precipice. But I think where we are right now is solid, and I'm looking forward to a great next year under this budget, and addressing what we need to address to move forward. So I'm a yes as well.
Great. Look, I made some opening comments, thanking Lisa and everyone on this call for all the work that you've done. I really don't have anything to add. I really would like to compliment my fellow board members. David, Michael, I know how much time you put in having conversations with Lisa. The same with you, Sharon and Lisa. So, it's been a long process, and we started at a much higher number. We've come down to a very workable number because we do have the students to be concerned about, but we also have our staff to be concerned about. People who are delivering the product. And so you have to be cognizant of all of that. So I'm a yes as well. Chad is not here, and he can't vote in absentia. So with that, the operating budget passes. Can we move on to the capital budget? Is there more comments on the capital budget beyond the HVAC system that anybody wants to make?
Well, I have a comment on the HVAC system.
Sure.
Right now, I would vote against any deferment of full commitment of capital for that, because historically we kicked the can down the road, even with some money spent. We've seen that in other projects. I'm a member of ASHRA, right? So ASHRA is the HVAC Engineering and Technical Society. I'm a member of the Technical Committee 2.7, which is HVAC for schools. I'm not a mechanical engineer, I'm an electrical engineer. And one of the first things they talk about is, and Phil and Mike Del Mastro actually has the guidelines, is your school district committed? Are they going to see it through? Because it's expensive, it's a lot of work, and it's easy to get sidetracked, right? So here we've been sidetracked for 10 years. We could be sidetracked for 3 years. It should be expedited, not wait and maybe see what they say and then maybe implement something that clearly is lacking systemically in North House. So now you have pre-K kids and K kids and their parents going, hold it. What is there? Ozone in the air? Is there dust? My kids aren't heated. My kids aren't cooled. They're sucking down flu virus. And you have no answer for that except, well, we'll look at a consultant. Then we'll maybe look at some of the system options. Then maybe we'll make a decision, or maybe we'll defer that because somebody else wants to spend some money on something. Well, we'll wait 3 more years to actually fund it. And then Hurlbut will have the same HVAC that it's had for 60 years. And those pre-K kids will be sucking down fumes, and their parents will be like, you had an opportunity for it. You just keep deferring it. You just keep pushing it down the road so there's some palpability. Well, I don't think that's particularly fair to a bunch of pre-K and K kids now. I say you have to go all in. And the Ashford mechanical engineers, now they're not taxpayers. I understand that, but they're like, you got to be committed from the front because it gets side railed, it gets put on hold for some other reason, and you never get to it. And now you've spent $800,000 and got nothing. I'd rather commit to 1.3 and get a lot, and then it's done. And then we know it's done. And then it lasts for 20 years because Mike DeMastro are good facility guys and train and Carrier, and those guys are really good handler guys, and it gets done right. So that's my 2 cents. I would not vote for a capital budget if we defer commitment on this. I'd be a no vote this evening. That's how strongly I feel about it.
Okay.
Peter, sorry. Peter, are you suggesting that? I'm not suggesting that we delay this at all. I'm
suggesting that we have to commit entirely. We don't get the luxury. No, you got it, because you don't know the timeline. You'll get to the point where, we spent some money. We feels like, we should actually order some equipment now, and we need the money. And guess what? The guys can start actually earlier than we thought. The other way is, well, we don't have to really have a schedule. We really won't have to order equipment. And then the guys, we won't have to pay their now increasing wages 3 years from now because we don't want to spend the money. So it's a matter of heartfelt commitment. And I think, maybe the town doesn't commit to much, but if you're going to do this for these kids, you go all in and you say, yes, we're going to commit to this. We're going to see it through to the end. And that's going to be the message to the consultants, to the equipment suppliers, to the contractors. These guys committed to it. I'm putting them on my schedule because they committed the money to it. And the money will be there. If not, they'll be like, well, next year you'll vote. I'll take a couple other jobs. Then by the time you vote, and maybe there's some discussion, I'll move on to another job. I'll move on to the Westport HVAC guys. I mean, that's the warning I get from the technical society that looks at this nationally. They've seen this over and over again. Like, a lack of commitment means ultimately a lack of success. That's just my message. I don't know. I kind of trust the engineers on this one, right? They've seen 1,000 HVACs being installed or not being installed in 1,000 schools. So they just have a lot of history.
Steve, what does approving it all this year? And again, I'm simply proposing, a reallocation if it doesn't hinder progress, knowing that I think we're all committed. To your point, Peter, Steve also made a point before about we are competing for dollars with the town. So I guess the question, Steve, then back to you, is that if we were to put it all in this year's budget, would that even be palatable for the town? I guess it's not. I don't want the perfect to be the enemy of the good here. Maybe it is preferable, Peter. I don't know. Maybe it is preferable to just approve it all this year, but is that even possible, Steve? And what is the path of least resistance here that is not going to result in a delay of the project and buy-in from the town? So I guess if the town accepts the whole thing this year, Peter, fine. But if the town is gonna balk at that, then we have to be flexible. I don't know, Steve.
Yeah, I mean, you guys are really thinking hard about this, but my answer would be let the people who vote no look at the parents in the eye of PK kids and say, I don't want your kids to have clean air and comfort.
I
No one's
personally
saying
have
that.
no problem putting the full amount into the capital budget and having this very same conversation with the Board of Selectmen and the Board of Finance. But we're competing for dollars, and my guess is the questions that we've asked this evening about can it be spread over 2 years will be the same questions they're going to ask. So do we want to prejudge that and just say we recognize we're probably going to be asked this again, or just go all in? I mean, my view is if we split it 50-50, 900 one year, in round numbers, 900 the next year, if you have $900,000 expended buying equipment, it's not, I know you're shaking your head, Peter, it's not going to sit in the locker for purpose. You're there. In fact, that's kind of the base of the next capital year's budget. But we can.
Yeah, it's like I've dipped my kind of toe in and I dipped my ankle in, but unless you jump in, and this stuff's tough.
Yeah, but if
Mechanical
you have $900,000 of equipment sitting in a warehouse,
It's not costing him a thing.
Yeah, not to mention.
Well, you want to start that build then. You want to hire, you got to need the money if you have any equipment. These guys are want to get started, right? Because you've captured that wage at a year earlier and that time allocation to get it installed and get it calibrated and tested. That it's OSHA and it's EPA. It's complicated. So if you're going to bring in consultants and then you're going to bring in some equipment, you're going to bring in Trane or Carrier or Mitsubishi, and then they're going to bring in their favorite local contractors who know how to install it. They want to get going. They're not going to let anything sit in a warehouse.
Look, this is just gamesmanship. If we really believe it's necessary, in which it seems like everyone believes it's necessary, let's just put it in the budget. Let the Board of Finance or Board of Selectmen, make a determination.
I don't necessarily disagree with that, but I think we just need to be prepared to defend why we're going to have the full amount in there. Because initially, in talking about it, it made total sense to me that we could easily defer half of it and not have such a, lessen the spike, shall we say. But that being said, having worked a lot with contractors don't like to commit their time unless they know that the money is there. Right. And for us to say, no, we promise we're just going to pass it in the next year's budget might actually put a lot of the contractors off. So to Peter's point, and I'm with you, we can put it all in, but we just need to be able to defend ourselves to the they're watching this call right now. So we just need to be prepared to defend our position.
We're going to defend our position regardless.
I just want to quickly say, we're timing the allocation of money with when Mike Del Mastro said is likely to hit. So I see this as two separate issues. Or three. We're committed to the design, which has to happen first. That money has been earmarked, but it was the design, Phil said, was essentially delayed because there wasn't a commitment to actually move forward with equipment because there was no money. So we have design has to happen first. Then there has to be the parts that have to be ordered. Michael said it was unlikely that this was going to be completed until summer of 27. So we're simply taking the dollar amount. We are allocating it in the year it's likely to hit. We are creating a more of a straight line on the capital budget so there isn't this big spike. And in my opinion, because of the pressures from the town to what Steve was saying, there's two ways of looking at it. Just send the full amount and it's going to be low-hanging fruit. And the town's going to probably say, allocate it in the year that you're going to spend it. And if by some chance we do what I'm suggesting, which is we allocate it in the year that we spend. So we do half this year, and a vendor shows up in February of 26 and says, we can get rolling on this starting March 1st. We just had a big project open up. We can ask the town for a special appropriation. We haven't locked ourselves out. So my position is allocate the money in the budget. It's likely to be spent. And if you truly have a concern, Peter, that there's going to be installers on March 1st saying, we're not waiting until July 1. And if we are, the price will go up by 30%. We're ready to roll tomorrow. Then we go to the town and we ask for a special appropriation.
I mean, Sharon builds houses. I mean, we all,
Scheduling
I mean,
issue,
I went through $100,000 quote with my HVAC folks, right? I mean, the mentality is that's residential. When you go to commercial, it's a 10X. It's like blood in the water for the sharks, which is a bad way of saying, but once they know you're committed, once they know there's funds allocated to this, they're going to move faster and slower, right? They're going to want to get it done fall of 25, not summer of 27, right? So it compresses it. Without a commitment, it will just keep on going. And we'll have to look at the newborns by the time this HVAC gets put in. And Mike Del Mastro is being conservative because he can't commit to these guys up front. So he's like, well, I'm going to have to play a game with them. It's blood in the water. They see the money. You're going to find all the pieces fall into place, and the kids benefit sooner or later. If the money's not out.
Not to mention, there's only probably a few companies that can actually do one of these installations, right? And they are going to take a look and say, okay, so we've got a variety of different projects on our plate to look at, and they'll take all of this into consideration before they commit to doing anything for us. They'll look to see whether or not this has been approved by the town. And so, and if it's not been approved by the town, they'll be like, you give us a jingle when it's, when you guys have approved it, and then we'll come back and put you on our schedule. So that's
always when your kids want to breathe good air.
Well, I wouldn't quite go that far, Peter, but they will say, call us when you're
allowed to be hyperbolic a little bit.
I know. But so I just think we need to be cautious of that, because we don't want to lose the opportunity to have these people come in and install this. I mean, I'd love to have it early, but even on time, because we haven't appropriated the funds until we think that we're going to need them. I mean, that's just the contracting world. Sorry.
Just to complete the circle then, Sharon, you're in favor of put it in the budget now?
I am. Initially I was like, yeah, let's go ahead and divide it. But thinking about working with contractors, the amount that we work with contractors, yeah, I am in favor of putting it in the budget now. And I know we're going to get pushback from the town. We need to be prepared to defend it. That's all.
Peter, I don't think I have to ask you that question.
Well, I will make a commitment since I'm clearly a vocal proponent. I'm going to the ASHRAE technical and trade show in 2 weeks in Orlando, and I'm meeting my fellow committee members. I'll try to get a testimonial that supports my assertions, so we have something in writing from the technical.
Lisa, do you have a
trade organization?
Do you have a thought on this?
I really believe that Peter and Sharon are right. I believe that I'm too afraid it's going to be the fire truck that was 2/3 paid for, and they were having doubts about the last payment. And this is really too important. We put it off for so long that it's going to be 2 years. It should be expedited as quickly as possible and push it through with a company that can do it quickly.
Michael?
I was trying to think of a more efficient way of doing this from an affordability standpoint, where we're asking the town all the considerations around it. I don't want to delay the project, obviously. Hess needed this, years ago. And so I don't want to delay the project. If we all believe that committing the funds immediately is going to speed up the process, then okay, then I can go along with that. If I'm thinking from a financial standpoint, You avoid, as Phil said, the sawtooth. There's a time value of money, of course, that's involved. And going off of Mike Del Mastro's previous comments, I thought there was an opportunity potentially there to go ahead and reduce the ask of the town. Again, I don't want to delay the project. If you all think, I haven't dealt with contractors that are associated with municipalities, if you all think that in some way that's going to encumber the project, then okay, let's put the full amount to the town now and see what they have to say. I mean, I wouldn't be shocked if they approved or told us to go back and rethink it. But I'm happy to put it forward if you all think that that's the way to go.
David?
It's summertime work. It is not happening summer of 25. So the soonest is happening in summer of 26. I say allocate the money in the year it's going to hit. So the answer for me is no.
Okay.
So David, they never do HVAC in Alaska with that logic. If it's an internal project for ductwork, they, in the state of Connecticut, they put handlers on roofs in the winter. I mean, come on. It's not summertime work. It's year-long work. What are these guys down in Florida all winter because they can't get work? Come on.
So you think you're going to have mechanics working on the roof and in the building with students? Never going to happen for security, inconvenience. There's so many reasons it doesn't happen.
You have windows of opportunity to get work done. What do you think Mike Del Mastro doesn't get any work done during Christmas break and February break? Now you're arguing with me about an assertion of they start date.
Okay,
That's a nonsensical argument.
Okay, well, that's not going to be solved now. I'm actually in favor of putting it in the budget now and then having a conversation, because there was a comment made about the lockers. I don't know, Dan, how long did it take the lockers they put in the middle school? 10 years? I think it was a conversation every year.
A while.
On the board.
We're glad to have them, though. Thank you very much for the support.
No, but it took forever.
It did.
And the conversation was, well, they look okay to me, but ultimately they failed. So are there any, so we should take a vote on this, because we don't vote the individual, we don't vote the totality of the capital budget. We vote it by projects.
One more comment, Steve, on this. Before Phil mentioned, I think it was 1.75 is in the budget, in the capital budget for this line item. Phil, did I mishear you before that you said it was around 1.3 or 1.4?
No, I'm sorry. That actual amount is 1.7.
Oh, okay. You said a lower number earlier.
Yeah, I did. That's on me. I'm sorry. It is 1.7. 1,750,000.
The price has already gone up. Peter, you're spot on.
Okay, so
that's because we delayed the vote 30 minutes. I mean, another 30 minutes. God knows.
I'm just confirming the amount. So the amount is 1.75 million. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay, that's all I wanted to know. Thank you.
Okay, so this is a line item. Can we have a motion to approve? What's the exact number, Phil? I don't have it in front of me.
David, do you want to read the motion or no?
Yeah, I don't have the line item though. I just have the overall capital budget.
Is this vote on the one item or the entire capital budget, Steve?
No, I think we should do each item. I mean, that's the way it's voted by the town.
If you want to do it by number then, rather than full statement, I mean, what is expedition?
Well, I guess the question is, let's make it simple for the board. Are there any other parts of the capital budget people are concerned about?
No.
Okay, well, if that's the case, then why don't we just vote the number?
Yeah.
Phil.
All right, David, you're up.
Okay. Move. How ironic. Move that the Weston Board of Education approve the fiscal year 26 capital budget in the amount of $3,336,000.
Is there a second?
I second.
Let's do it by member. Lisa? That's aye. You're on mute. That's a yes?
I approve.
Okay, Peter?
I approve.
Michael,
Approve.
David,
No.
Sharon,
Approve.
and I approve. So we move forward and the capital budget is approved and move on to the Board of Finance. And I think that's it for the evening.
I'd like to make a comment.
Please.
Thank you. So I want to stress that I think that this process is really very important. And, at times you said, you asked a lot of questions. We spent a lot of time together and individually and writing documents and on the phone. But clarifying questions, understanding feedback, providing you with important data so that you could make a decision. It's just an important part of the process. That's what we teach our children in the Weston Public Schools, right? So you are modeling that for them. On behalf of the administration, the faculty, and the staff, I would like to thank the board for its support. And I'd like to remind you of something. What you voted for and supported was to empower every student to achieve success. What you voted for was to support teaching and learning and the development of those skills that are so essential so that our kids leave and become young adults that are ready to contribute positively to our society. And boy, do we need that now. So I just want to remind everyone, Weston are the schools and the schools are Weston. And I am so proud of this community. We can come together, we can disagree, we can work through things, which is all part of the process. And again, that we can honor, that's your belief, right? Honor the uniqueness of every individual and what that person brings. So really, this is the end for me as far as getting the budget passed at this Board of Ed. We are committed to continue with the other boards and we're still not there in the ATBM, and we will continue to methodically work through the process. But again, I want to thank you. And I realized today how many of our staff watch these meetings, because I was at the middle school and I was stopped throughout my walkthroughs with Mr. Doak. He's shaking his head and they're like, Lisa, I heard this question. Lisa, how do you think this is going to go? And I'm like, listen, it will be fine. We just have to continue through the process. So thank you.
No, thank you, Lisa.
And thank you.
Thanks to everybody. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you very much, Lisa, and everyone, Phil, Lisa. I mean, everyone who contributed to putting this together. This was not an easy budget year. This was a really difficult year, and this, having been here now for 5 of these, this is really not been easy at all. And I appreciate everyone doing it. And Lisa, congratulations on getting your final budget through the board. Now let's keep going and getting it through the referendum as well. So thank you everyone for all your hard work.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. With that, can we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Okay.
To
Second.
adjourn.
I'll
All those in
second.
favor? Aye. Okay. Here we
Aye.
go.